delays in traffic, concerns about employment prospects. Can you understand that some Australians may not be feeling one and free at the moment?
I understand the frustrations that people have with the disruption that comes from those changes. We're dealing with a pandemic. That hasn't changed. But it doesn't change who we are as Australians. Australians are Australians whether they're in Queensland, New South Wales, Western Australia, Tassie, wherever they happen to be. And that's not affected by those things. These changes have been put in place by states for public health reasons, and that's their purpose, not to divide Australia, but to, in their decisions to seek to keep Australians safe. Now, each state and territory has, over the course of the pandemic, had their own approaches from time to time, particularly when it comes to borders. I welcome particularly the approach that we've seen from Queensland most recently. They've adopted that hotspot around Greater Sydney. People know my view about, I think, the great approach that the Northern Territory has taken all throughout this crisis. They identify hotspots, they come on and off the list, and I think that has proved to be a very effective way. Tasmania, similarly on this case, continues to treat both Victoria and New South Wales on a hotspot basis. And I think that is a constructive way, and I welcome that approach. But look, at the end of the day, state governments are elected by the people of their state to exercise their responsibilities when it comes to the public health of people in their state. And as much as we would like there to be greater consistency across all of these things, we must respect their jurisdictional authority, because they're ultimately responsible for what would happen in their state if there were to be an outbreak in their state. And as Prime Minister, I do respect that. I can have whatever view I may wish to have, but ultimately they're responsible for those things. And I have to respect the authority that they've derived from their own electoral processes in making those decisions. So I can understand the frustration. We are similarly in a situation. One of the reasons my family and I remain in the ACT is because I need to be in Canberra, and if I were to go to Sydney at present, it would mean I would not be able to return here. And as a result, we're remaining here because this is where I need to be able to be with Paul and the many other advisors and others who are managing these most recent set of events. So we all are dealing with these things, and I thank Australians for their forbearance, and I think that has been one of the great qualities of Australians over the course of these last 12 months. And to pick up on what Paul just said, look at the alternative. Look at the alternative overseas. Look and see how others are spending this time in so many other countries around the world. And as frustrated as we might be from time to time, I think there's also an opportunity to count our blessings.
There's obviously been a lot of support for the change today, but there's many who say that doesn't go far enough and would like to have seen a complete rewrite. What do you say to them? Was that considered? Will that ever be considered?
This is a simple change. I think it's a change that I think is very much in accord with where Australians feel about these things. It's not pretending to be anything more than it is. I think it's been well received across the country. There will be those who don't think it goes far enough, and those who think it goes too far. Well, that's democracy, and that's one of the things we celebrate in our national anthem. But I think it's a sensible change, and I think it'll be well received, and I look forward to it being sung the first time. Perhaps that will be at the SCG test in a few days' time. I was actually texting back and forward this morning with Justin Langer and Tim Payne, and wishing them well for the test, and because normally they would be at Kirribilli today, and none of us are going to be at Kirribilli today. But they assure me they're going to bounce back, and I have every confidence that they will.
Prime Minister, any chance you wanted to be the first to sing the new national anthem? You are alongside Paul Kelly. Well,
I think singing by Prime Ministers is the same as with public exercise by Prime Ministers. It's best done in private. I'll leave the singing to Tina Arena and others who are far better at that than me. Yeah, you'll hear me sing it in a crowd, as always.
Prime Minister, back in July you said that Australia couldn't afford to go stop, go when it comes to these border restrictions. Isn't that essentially now what we're facing heading into 2021, that states are not going to be able to open up forever if they continue to see these small clusters?
Well, we are moving towards a vaccine into the new year, And that, I think, will obviously change the parameters for everybody. But that will take some time as we move through its distribution across the community. And this is why, you know, when I see what some states have done and looking at Greater Sydney as a particular area of concern and managing that way, then that's welcome. But I think we have to keep reminding ourselves there is no just simple, easy way of this all being fixed. It's a global pandemic, and that means there will be frustrations from time to time. They're disruptive, and they can put long-held plans at bay, and that can be very disappointing. But we will continue to get through it. And I think it's important that when states are making these decisions, they must give thought to balancing the risk of COVID and its transmission against the disruption to people. And that's what they are accountable for, and that's what they have to explain to their citizens in their own states.
Just following from Judy's question, obviously you're saying it's going to take some months, but once we start a vaccine rollout, will you want to reboot the roadmap to reopening timeline and process? Is that the point and would you expect the Premiers to stick to it?
Well, the roadmap doesn't change. I mean, the roadmap always has as its goal to get all of these things lifted. And I would hope that as quickly as states have moved to put things in place, that they would move as quickly once that risk subsides. And we saw that in most cases after the Adelaide outbreak, which was able to be get on top of very quickly. We've seen borders on this occasion come up more promptly than it occurred when there was the significant Victorian outbreak, and the New South Wales border was not closed for some time until after that was done. So, this is why I sort of hold out the Northern Territory as a very good model. They declare a hotspot, and it goes on, and then it comes off. And I think that that is a very good model, and that has been my consistent view over these many, many months of the pandemic.